Hello, I am Ricky Church for Flickering Myth, and I'm here today with Kat Hostick for Polly is the New Monogamy. Polly is the New Monogamy. That rolls off the tongue very well. Um, yeah, so she is the creator, writer, actress, and producer of this series. So how are you doing, Kat?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So what can you tell us about Polly is the New Monogamy?
Yeah, Polyism Monogamy is it's a half-hour comedy. Each episode 7 to 22 minutes. It's kind of like a Sex in the City or HBO's Girls. If you like shows in that vein, you'll probably like our show.
Awesome. Yeah. And who do you play in it?
I play Sage Larson, who is kind of like this lost bird trying to navigate her life and relationship, and she's a little bit, I would say, self-destructive in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, you wear like a lot of hats for this show. So
Yeah.
what was that like? How did you get this off the ground? What made you want to be like um I'll this is a show I want to make. It's a show I want to write. It's what I want to act in. Like what led to those decisions?
It's a really great question. Yeah, it's like I've so long ago since I wrote this, and I was trying to think of it. I'm like, I can't remember what actually sparked the idea of me wanting to make this show, like the specific moment or anything. But I started writing it like it was like 7 years ago or something that I wrote the first draft, maybe even longer than that. And originally it was a longer show. It was like I wrote it as an hour long. And then I I don't know, like I've always loved like relationship type shows. Like I always think they're just like super relatable and they like help people. They help you navigate the world of like difficulties in relationships and try and like figure out who you are. And I was always just like such a Sex and the City fan and shows like that. And I remember like always just wanting to make a show like that in a, a comedic way or something that was a little bit lighter. Um, so yeah, that was I think one of the biggest things. But in terms of like making it a half hour, um, there was different producers and stuff involved at different points that wanted to, develop it into like a bigger TV show with a network. We made this
Mhm,
independently, so it was a little bit of a different process, and many people don't create series like in that way.
mhm,
Um, but I worried at the time because um I wasn't a really big TV director back then. Like now I've directed like, like 30 episodes of television or whatever. And so
mhm,
now I'm like, I'd be more confident if I was to take it directly to network. But back then I felt like I'd be cut out of that process. So I wanted to make something independently, but I knew to do that I couldn't do it as a 1 hour show. I had to
mhm.
make it a lot shorter. So that's kind of how it ended up being what it was.
Awesome. Cool. And when you like wrote these characters and like wrote Sage, did you feel like what made you like choose Sage of them all that made you want to say like yeah, I want to play her. Like did you feel a connection to her at all like from like previous experiences and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't always want to play Sage. I think like when you write stuff, you try and, write from personal experiences or, people that you know and what they've been through and you pull all these different pieces from different areas. And um I don't know, I think at one point like I really thought that I would play Ava actually. But I don't know, in the end, I think like within the last like couple years, I gravitated more towards Sage. I don't know. I think there's probably more personality traits wise that I'm just naturally like her. And I think,
Mhm,
yeah, there was just definitely Zoe. I always knew that I wanted someone to, like an Amy Schumer type, like and somebody who was like really funny and like Anne Purvey was like she's hilarious, and
Yeah.
and somebody who can deliver, like, like Amy Schumer, she'll just say stuff and it's so unpopular, but she's being so honest, so that's like what makes
Hmm.
it likable. And so I knew that I needed somebody, who could really play up the comedy really well, and who's just like, I don't know, like just so funny. And I don't know, in the end, I just thought Ava needed more like mother hen energy, and I don't think that I naturally have that. And like when I cast stuff, like I cast this project,
Yeah.
we have a casting director for it, and so I was just like, I need somebody with that energy. And I always like to, when I go through this type of process casting on my own, I'm like, okay, who do I know who naturally has a bit of that energy? It's one thing, you can obviously get actors who are so versatile and can who can play those bits, but I'm like, who can naturally like bring a little bit of that to the table? And so
Hmm.
I tried to think of that with the casting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Bobby, he, when I spoke with him, he mentioned that you wrote Tommy like
Yes,
specifically for him.
I did. I did. I wrote that was the one role. Um he was the only person in the show where I wrote the role for somebody specifically. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna do the show if you're not gonna do this role. So, so yeah, and so he's the only person in real life where he is a best friend of mine, and he
Mhm.
plays, my best friend, or one of my best friends in the show, like my confidant kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and like, so yeah, what's it like going through that casting process and looking for all these people and like connecting with them and like the characters that like sprung from your mind and then seeing them bring them to life.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I think casting is I think it's really difficult to do, and especially, like our budget, like we had like a lower budget show, and so people really had to read the script and love it to come on board, I think, in this circumstance. And then we're casting on our own, so we're up against a lot. It's really hard, and we had a huge cast. We had like an ensemble cast, and then there's like so many smaller roles, like one-off roles and stuff that come in for an
Hmm.
episode or two. So it was a lot, but there was definitely some characters that changed. And like we just came across certain actors, and we're like, and I didn't think of that in my head
Hmm.
when I wrote it. It's like, but then, we came across some of the actors, and we're like, oh yeah, like they work, and that other choice that I thought in my head when writing this like would not have worked. Like it kind of it elevated it. Some of these people that just, you know that came up in casting, so it's
Hmm.
really cool to see. And interesting, like, there's a million different ways to cast a film in terms of chemistry and stuff too.
Yeah.
And um yeah, it's interesting to see how it all kind of came along with,
Hmm. Yeah, awesome. And like you mentioned that this is an ensemble. The show like obviously follows Sage. She's the lead character, but like it really follows everybody else like Zoe and Ava and a couple of the guys. So how do you like juggle that many kind of like storylines and especially like when as you mentioned like it's a smaller budget, you don't have the room to like expand on things you might want to or cut things you might do. How'd you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because it's hard. Like it is a lot of storylines uh for a short show. Like it is just a
Mhm.
half hour. And really, I think, in a perfect world, I think this would have, been a drama. It would have been
Mhm.
a longer time slot, because I think there's so much to go off of. So it's challenging because, like, if I can criticize my own show, like, I do, I do think that I would have loved to dive dive deeper and flesh out some of these storylines and like what they're going through a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, but I just you know, you just can't, and you just have to make choices in like the editing room as well. Like you have to cut things if the episodes are too long. And um yeah, it was definitely like one of the most challenging things for sure, is that many having that many storylines to follow and like having it all feel like it's enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and like you've likened it to Sex and the City, and in Bobby, they also said it's like Sex and the City, that that was kind of the inspiration you guys were going for. So like the three leads, like a lot of the characters are in the show, the majority of them are women. And so what you know, so many shows now, they like we still don't get a lot of like lead cast full of women. So what was that process like for you, both in like the concept, creating the concept of the show, and then going through casting and everything? Like,
Mhm.
what was kind of the main idea you had with that, and what you wanted to draw audiences to for a modern Sex and the City type show?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about I think having women as leads. I think that there's like it's so funny, like as an actress, there's actually so many more, it sounds really bad, but there's so many more like male roles I wish I had. Like I wish I could be that male actor, or I wish I could do
Hmm.
that role. Like it'd be sweet to be like, you know, do like Born Identity. Like there's you know,
Yeah, yeah.
so I get it in that way. I think but the one thing with the leads in this show is a lot of them are like pretty imperfect.
Hmm.
And I think that like maybe I get criticized for that, but that's I think that a lot of women are, you know, flawed, and like you're just trying to like figure stuff out and figure out your life, your relationships, who you are. And so I kind of, you know, wanted to create some characters who just like who'd made mistakes and like are a little bit messy, and that like, you know, evolves over time, then becoming stronger. And that was really important to me. And I think a lot of shows, like the way that, you know, women are crafted, it's like they have to be this like perfect, have it all together, like
Hmm.
for aspirational or whatever. And I wanted to find a balance with that, and that was really important
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, no, I really like that aspect of it, just in like the relatability of it to the characters, like being late 20s, early 30s, and yeah, sometimes you don't have things in your life figured out just yet, or you're still trying, or you go through a transition between jobs or romantic partners or something. So I found that like really relatable to it, and how they're all trying to figure that out.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I that's just it. Like that's the word. I just wanted it to be relatable, and I think being a little bit of a mess sometimes is probably relatable.
Yeah. And on the comedy aspect, like there's a lot of funny moments in this throughout the series, but it's also like there's quite a lot of I don't know if raunchy is like the type of word, but just like the girls are having like honest conversations, and they're talking about like all these like sexual topics and stuff like that. And then they're doing all these things to get out of trouble and stuff like that. It's like I said to Anne and Bobby that we don't see even in comedies, like we still don't see very much women acting that type of way. It's like they've got to act this way in comedies, but it's been like a noticeable trend the last few years that like, oh no, women can be raunchy too. They can do this. They can do just as much bad stuff as the guys.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
It was really funny actually. Bobby, who plays Tommy, like I sent him, I forget, it was like a video on TikTok or something. It was like this girl, she's like, what happens after the date? That was like the line or
Mhm.
whatever. And then she gets in the car, gets on the phone, talking to her friend, is pounding McDonald's and like farts really loud. Me. And then he was like, do chicks actually do that? And I'm like, for sure. Like I think there's this like, yeah, like women can be raunchy and raw and like do things like we're supposed to be it. Sorry, really loud fire truck going by. Yeah, it's like women are supposed to be a certain way in men's eyes or something like that. But that's not necessarily true. And I just feel like with comedy, look, I think ultimately the show is like dramedy, like it's not
Mhm.
like whole laugh out loud funny the entire time or anything. But yeah, in terms of the comedy, I think there's like so many good like 90s comedies, and like there was like raunchier
Mhm.
comedy. And I don't know, I've seen kind of, I don't know like what your thoughts are, but I haven't seen so much of that in the last few years. I think it's maybe slowly coming back, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
really, what do you
yeah. Because
think?
I was thinking that like we haven't had like a type of like American Pie or Road Trip or something like that in a long time, or Super Bad, which you guys call out like very well in that episode when you two are watching it. I've seen that type of humor coming back a bit too. I agree that we've seen some shows and movies that have been getting a little raunchier as time went on because in like the 2010s there wasn't that much of it, like especially like Bridesmaids and Booksmart are like two things that come to mind for me, especially from a female perspective.
I
Um,
love Bridesmaids. Such a good film. Yeah. Like I want to see more of that, I want to make more of that.
yeah, yeah. So, like, was that kind of your like, did that factor into your process at all of creating it? Of like, I want to see like this specific type of comedy through like the female perspective because we don't get a whole lot of that now.
Totally. I find that those films are like totally nostalgic for me, and I just love that, again, love that kind of comedy, like super bad, like I love so much. I definitely wanted to see more of those, and I think you definitely can see a little bit of that within the show. So, yeah, I think it's a good blend between, again, just wanting to make like a fun show about relationships and, have be a series and something you can follow over a long period of time, but then also um yeah, just, the comedy aspect of something a little raunchier and more fun.
Yeah. And was there like one comedy moment in particular that like stood out to you that was like, especially coming from writing and directing part of it of like, I'd really like to do this. I don't know how it's going to play or if it will pass like the executives and stuff, and then like actually filming it, seeing how well it worked.
Oh, interesting. Um, I mean, there's a couple like there's like three scenes in particular I think I really love. I I don't know, like like the poop scene like on the skyline.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah. And kind of called that out, and also the goat yoga scene.
I know, I did not know how that was gonna go. That day. Yeah, I was like, Mina had like bruises on her back. These goats just like the outtakes are pretty good. I think we gotta compile them. There's like goats just jumping back and forth, eating people's clothes, eating the DP's
Gosh.
equipment. It was just like, and then like sound was like, I don't even know what you want me to do right now. There's like 50 goats just, but you
Yeah,
know what?
those bloopers would be really funny.
Really funny. I think it worked out really great though. I think it was a good scene, and we got like
Mhm.
this one really good moment with the goat, like putting his arm around me at the moment that I
Oh
felt
yeah.
bad, like I don't know, it worked out.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and now this is just 6 episodes, but
Mm.
there seems like plenty more that you can do, like directions the characters can take. So are you thinking of like, where what else you might like to do with the show and like these characters, where else they might be able to end up?
Yeah, I don't know how much I can say about that right now, but we have like the whole season 2 outlined. So
Nice. Mhm.
yeah, very exciting. It's gonna be really, really good. And I wouldn't say I would say that the character, like the storylines are like more fleshed out. Like they definitely, there's more depth to them. I think the jokes are, the jokes are better. It's just amped up the comedy, amp up the drama. Like it's just it's really good. It'll be an interesting season too, if we get
Awesome. Yeah,
it.
that'd be awesome for sure.
Yeah.
And do you have any other like upcoming projects and stuff or anything you want to mention?
Um, there are. I haven't publicly mentioned them yet. I feel like I shouldn't say anything yet, but
Yeah, no
um, but
worries.
yes, I actually do have some very exciting projects coming up, including a horror movie that I'm supposed to be directing this year.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so very excited about that one. Would love to chat with you about that at some point.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I'd love that. All
Yeah.
right, so that is Cat Hotstick, everybody. Polly's the New Monogamy premieres on Hollywood Suites on Wednesday, June 17th. So you can check it out there. If you're in the States, you can watch it on Prime or Tubi, I believe. Is that right?
That's right.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you very much for speaking with me, Kat, and enjoyed the show. And yeah, looking forward to more.
Thanks, Ricky.
Hello, I'm Ricky Church for Flickering Myth. I'm here today with Anne Purview and Bobby Del Rio, stars of the upcoming show Polly is the New Monogamy. So, how are you guys?
Thanks
We're
for
great.
having us, Ricky.
How you doing, Ricky Church, with a distinctive name?
I'm good. I am
Is that
good.
your real name, or like, is this your stage name? Like, what's happening?
No, no, real name. Real name.
Okay.
He's a
Yeah,
rock star.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been told it's a rock star name. So, or
Yeah,
Right.
like, if I were a PI, it would be a gritty PI detective name. So,
I love it. I love it. I want to see that show. Ricky Church on
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, so yeah, let's talk about your guys' new show, Polly's the New Monogamy. It's a comedy following a group of women as they traverse their romantic relationships and like the new settings of like sex positivity and open relationships. So what can you guys tell me about it?
Yeah, I feel like it's such an exciting modern take on what relationships can look like in the 21st century. I think it's we like to call it sex positive in the sense that anything goes. And literally, what's wonderful is that the ensemble cast that the incredible Cat Hostick has assembled, and I'm very lucky to be a part of, and I know Bobby really feels the same. It really brings something very unique to the table. Like everyone brings something very unique to the table, and the storylines are so hilarious and interesting in and of themselves. It's just I'll be very curious to see what people think.
You know what's interesting is that it's definitely from the female point of view, and I think this is why it's such an interesting series for me as a man. But at the same time, there's actually quite a few male characters, and there's quite a few male audience members who enjoy the show more than maybe they might think, because it's kind of like a new version of Sex and the City, but I do think it's more like an analysis of romantic relationships and all the sort of like different types of romantic relationships there are in contemporary society. So I think there's something in it for everybody.
Awesome, man.
100%.
Yeah. And what can you tell us about your character, Anne? Because she's quite an eccentric character.
I really appreciate that. We like to call her the free spirit. Uh, I think I play Zoe Caruana. Um, and she is a very innocently modern entrepreneurial go-getter. She thinks about relationships in a way that is very genuine and very heartfelt. She puts her heart in it 110%. The decisions that she ends up making from that beautiful heart space are a bit questionable sometimes and get her in a lot of trouble. But I think that her intentions always start out really well. So what I personally loved is, you know, the ability to have that innocence as the starting point, because, you know, love is at the heart of everything we do to connect with each other. And, you know, what can go wrong when you start out from a loving place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
A lot goes wrong. It's crazy. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. And Bobby, how about you? You played Tommy. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, I played Tommy. So Kat actually wrote the role for me, which is pretty wild. So I kind of play. I mean, obviously, like my name's not Tommy, you know, but it's an interesting variation of my real life relationship with Kat, where I'm really like a sounding board, and just I don't know, try to help her navigate through life's challenges, and Kat has challenges because she's a very alive, like creative human being. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see the Sage. I mean, obviously she's not Sage, but it's like you can see how she takes people in her life and creates these really interesting like tapestries that are very relatable. And yeah, so basically I play kind of like her male best friend who's really just kind of listening to her and helping to try and guide her as best he can.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And a little bit of
so to speak.
entrepreneur yourself on the side.
Yeah, I'm not a drug dealer in real life, so let's just clarify that right now. But yeah, no, I don't know. Kat has.
Listen, everything's legal.
Yeah, I don't know enough
I like
about.
that point that like when someone points that out, I was like, why aren't you doing this? There are dispensaries around. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, I don't even know enough about those rules, because I think there's rules like certain people can sell it, but I don't know if you can buy. Like, I don't think you can just go and sell weed to people at a bus shelter and that's legal, but I don't really know.
I think what's really cool about that, and even thanks for bringing that up, Ricky, is because like there's such a transition in our society nowadays, right? Things are genuinely, we're opening up as a society on so many levels. And the thing that's cool about the show is that inadvertently we get to address that. You get a bit of the old school mentalities mixing with the new mentalities, mixing with fresh energy and fresh ideas, right? And you get Bobby. No, I'm kidding. But it's like, it's really cool to be able to truly be a commentary of the times. As a comedic show, what I was most attracted to when I first read the story was like, man, this is relatable. This is very accessible material, right? And you can see the characters sort of jump off the page. And when you get really good actors sort of mixing in there and bringing it to life, you really get to be a snapshot of what it was like, you know, to be a 2024, 2030 something and explore relationships. So
also, Ricky, cool. Do you need weed? Like, I can hook you up. We can do that offline. Okay.
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay, just let me know.
Wow, the reality and art, you know, very fine line.
Verisimilitude.
Yeah. Yeah, so and you had brought it up, like this is a cast led by you and Kat and a bunch of other women who like have big either big main roles or recurring roles. So what's that kind of like to, like, you likened it to Sex and the City. What's that kind of like to make like a modern version of that's like more to our times and like throwing around all these like crazy ideas?
Ricky, it's a dream. For like 10 years, I've like, I want to be working on a comedy that's like Friends, like, you know, Friends, Sex in the City. Like these are iconic shows. I want to be on Friends or Sex and the City. It's so iconic and so like it left a stamp on people's hearts, you know, and I truly am so proud of the work that we've done with Polly, because Again, I'm not sure any one of us can take credit except for Kat because she's brilliant. She's literally a multi-hyphenated phenom on this. She's acting, she wrote it all, she directed it, and I think she's brilliant, truly, truly brilliant in everything she does, you know. But the combination of so many strong, smart actors and actresses, you know, and truly focusing on the female perspective is what gives the show a very impactful, fun. It's almost like you're sitting down and you're watching it, and I couldn't believe it myself, but it just like flows so well that you could binge if you wanted, but you also kind of want more, you know. So let's do 10 seasons like Friends did and call it a day, you know, and I'll be super happy.
You know what's interesting in terms of the female perspective? I think a reason there's a lot of actually like heterosexual men who enjoy the show, but because I think it's like, oh, that's what my girlfriend's thinking, and I know that like Kat has had feedback like that, and I for sure like that's my perspective as well. It's like I didn't even know that women had these conversations behind closed doors about
You
men
didn't?
or not about men. Well, how would I know,
Oh,
right?
Bobby.
I have no idea. Like, so for me, when I read the first draft, I was just like, is this true? Like, is this really
Oh,
what it's
yeah.
like? Yeah.
Oh, it gets worse. No, I'm kidding. No, I really, and thanks for bringing that up too, because I really think it's so cool to be so honest. Comedy gives you so much freedom to explore things that you might not necessarily put out there. But at the same time, this is genuine girl talk. Like, we do talk about a lot of different things. So having that as the springboard is the fodder for a lot of comedy. Life is
But
crazy, you know?
it's not just comedy, but there's definitely like a lot of truth and drama. I mean, again, it's so weird. Like
Yeah.
a contemporary story, it's hard to know what's the genre. People want to slot it in. Like I think it's just relatable relationship stories. But there's some very like dramatic, very powerful
Yeah.
moments in it as well.
Yeah. That's one thing that I like, that like there's for all the comedy of it, that there are some like serious character conversations going on, character development, especially towards the end, like in the final two episodes, particularly with Kat's character. Yeah, like lot of honest talk is had that feels not like it's made for drama's sake, but like it feels like does feel real and relatable.
Absolutely. And just like, you know, any good piece of art, you have to have that balance, you know, between is this actually happening to me, to like, oh my God, how do I deal with this now? Because it has. So it's got that beautiful roller coaster of, you know, highs and lows that real life does. And it's just a treat, like an absolute treat, when you get a chance to work with greatly written material. I sincerely think she did an amazing job creating the character arcs and telling the story, excuse me, and bringing it all together. You know, Life is Simple for the Pigeons, I think, was the title of the first episode. And let's just say pigeons bring us home towards the end of
Yeah.
you know, the last episode. So I thought she was brilliant in how you know, Kat wrote the script and how it flowed.
Yeah, and you touched a minute ago on like the comedy of it, and one of the surprising things for me was like how much more raunchy it is, because because it's not in a bad way, of course, but just we never see like women put in those positions being as raunchy as the guys, because you think of American Pie or Road Trip, like all those like classic 2000s movies, it's always the guys getting into that kind of trouble. And here it's been a noticeable shift in the last few years of like, oh yeah, women can also be just as raunchy as the guys.
I loved it. I loved it. There's such courage in that. And that's, you know, writing strong female characters you have to reflect that side of it as well, because, you know, yeah, we do that. We talk just in those terms. And I'll tell you what, we had the pleasure of screening the first episode, the pilot episode, at the Oakville Film Festival. Bobby was there too. I believe it was 3-4 weeks ago, and it was amazing. Now, it was a part of a shorts program, and there were surprisingly about 10 or 15 children in the audience, and there were about 2 or 3 walkouts about 10 minutes in, because it is definitely mature content, honest, raw, hilarious conversations, you know, girl talk. And it was fun to watch. It was super fun to squirm in my seat and watch and be like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, yes, children should not be watching this.
You know, at the same time, though, what is interesting is for me about the series is it really does traverse multiple genres, right? So you see, it's almost like a role reversal in terms of contemporary film and television, because actually the men can be surprisingly sensitive in this show, right? Like Anne's character is involved with different men, you know, in different scenarios, but some of the dramatic scenes between men and women in this show are very powerful. And you see, it's interesting because it is like from the female point of view, and there is this sort of like raunch comedy factor, which is very funny, but at the same time, it's balanced with what I would characterize as pretty sensitive men that I actually think is also very plausible and lands very credibly. So it's really a nice balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage. Honestly, when Kat approached me to be a part of the project, I was most excited about the comedy aspect of it, because she pushed for it. She was like, go all out, you know, whatever you want to do with this character, do it. And I'm a big fan of physical comedy. I think that in life, you know, like, ridiculous things happen to you all the time, and you have to navigate it, you know? And so it was really, really fun to get to actually play the comedy, to have the freedom, you know, in a TV series. We started out thinking it would be a web series, and now Hollywood Suites has come on board, and we have a broadcast deal and all these exciting things, and people actually get to see it on TV, you know? And we can do that. You know, we can put this on TV and for people to watch, and it's great, you know? So it's really exciting, and it was really fun to engage in, like, to push the comedy envelope, to lean into it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. What's without like spoiling anything, well, what's like both of yours like kind of standout moment from either like the comedy or the drama aspect of it? Well, what kind of made you even like reading the script, reading that on the page, like what made you say like, yes, this is something I want to do?
You go, Bobby Del Rio.
Okay, I'll go. I mean, okay, so I guess for me, what I would say is that, I mean, first of all, she kind of wrote it like for me, based on me, right? So I almost didn't really have a choice, right? Like it was kind of like, you're in the show, we'll let you know when we're shooting. I'm like, okay. But I guess what was so interesting is that, you know, like I'm also a writer and stuff, and it's not like I haven't seen this sort of genre before, as like Anne was saying, with like Friends and Sex and the City, Girls on HBO, right? Like there's these sort of like ensemble comedies about relationships. There's a lot of tropes, but when I read Polly, it was so interesting how it was familiar but also completely fresh and original, right? Like I've never seen writing like this, and I don't know if it's just like if these genres sort of build upon themselves, but I really do think, in a way, I mean, I don't know, I'm a bit older than the depicted characters, but it to me, it landed like a bit of a voice of a generation kind of piece.
I love that, Bobby. I have two things for you, Ricky. Number one, goat yoga. um, yeah, I genuinely don't want to say more to that because you need to see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
And two, from reading the pilot, I loved the fact that unapologetically, Zoe specifically calls herself a modern entrepreneurial female. And her business is based in having multiple sugar daddies that she juggles. I thought that was brilliant, you know, and in what world can we just without judgment and an open mind call that a business, right? Like I was immediately intrigued and I wanted to see how do you do that and where does this go? Is this actually a good idea? And I think that within that space there's so much more to explore, but the openness of mind. I think that the most valuable thing about the show is that it makes you think. It makes you think like, oh, this is out there, or oh, this is possible, or people do this, or like, people talk like this, people, and yes, 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 and yes. And the most amazing thing that we can do in today's day and age is consume this type of media and open our own minds, because in society there are different layers of this type of openness, right? In fact, there are certain facets of our society that aren't open at all, right? Like, people are still afraid to come out as gay or, transsexual or anything to their families, right? Like these things are real issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis. And it's wonderful to be able to discuss and think about these things from a non-judgmental place. That's the starting point of this beautiful show. And that's what I loved most about the script. It's unapologetically non-judgmental about some pretty hot button issues. Let's put it that way.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah. Tell me about it, Ann.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I really liked those issues. Hold on. Yeah. Time warning. So yeah, I really liked how those topics were addressed, and especially like the characters, and like you said, as to the length, like it's only 6 episodes, but it does feel like, no, I do want more. Like, give me more. And
Now,
so
the funny thing is, Ricky, since we started promoting and putting the show out, I have to acknowledge the fact that a huge amount of the number of the polyamorous community has reached out to me personally with excitement and discussion and, like super, super, wow, I can't believe we have representation on TV finally in the show. And the thing that I'm very proud of is that our show, although not directly addressing polyamory, right? It discusses the potential of having more than one type of juggling relationship in your life and what that could look like. And it's that type of openness and that type of thought that opens people's minds long term, right? And that's why I'm excited to see what happens next with these characters. And it's just so wonderful to connect, with everyone on that subject, and especially members of that community.
I will say though, explicitly, like I think there are people who think that the show is really about the poly community, and it's not, right?
No.
And so as much as
but it's a part of it. Yeah,
it is part of it, and we are opening up the conversation to all the different variations of relationships, but definitely like it's like I don't think that we want to be courting the poly community, because I think that there's also a risk that people might think, oh, this is about our community, where I think partly it is there, but it's really, I think, more a representation of all the different types of relationships that comprise the romantic landscape.
Yeah, it's so important to connect, and I think that whatever the audience takes away from it is everything. I think about that in all of art, any movie that you watch, anything that speaks to you, and whatever speaks to you, whatever you take out of it matters, so it's just been such a nice treat. again, without misrepresenting what our show is, Bobby is 100% correct. And that's what I think is so important to Kat and all of us to be honest about, I think that it just opens doors and makes you think. And the discussion is the most valuable thing that we can get out of art. Truly, it's like, what take away from watching something? I genuinely hope that you have a great laugh, and that you think, wow, this is what modern relationships look like in the 2024.
Right, and this is this is the power of the show. This is the engine of the show. Is like, wow, like look at all the different types of relationship options there are today. It's quite exciting.
Yeah. Another aspect I like too was how it introduced the sex therapy into it. And because like so many people, when you hear sex therapy, it's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like actual sex, or like someone's gonna be sitting in the corner guiding or something like that, so this
Oh my
like
God.
seeing that aspect in the show of like, oh no, it's like an actual doctor, it's like actual psychology, like sitting down with somebody. I thought that was a really neat aspect
Angle.
to it as well.
Couldn't agree more. And I think therapy is such an important part of life, of our modern day life now, from a psychological standpoint. I think, our society is bored. We no longer have to, for the most part, hunter, gather, do, and survive. Now we have lots of time to think. And those thoughts become, cumbersome at times. Those thoughts need help navigating. And so therapy of any sort is very important. And sex therapy specifically is something that we don't talk about enough, because intimacy is something you cultivate. And you see on set, even on film sets nowadays, film or TV, there's intimacy coordinators. It's a job now, for people in the film industry to help navigate some of these complexities. So just great that you appreciated that, Ricky, because I very much agree with you on that point. It was such a cool dimension and topic of discussion in the show, and my friend Mariana Fung, who's brilliant. We are friends for life. We literally met on the show and we are now friends for life. She was so brave in exploring that throughout her journey of her character, like I loved every second of what she did.
And that storyline for me really, really lands because, look, it's mostly a comedy with dramatic elements, but that storyline with Marianne's character, Ava, and her boyfriend Tyler, played by Mark Matichak, who also does a good job. It's really about how do you keep, a relationship intact when you're having sex problems, right? And it's really uncomfortable, and it's not really a story that you see often in television depicted, I think, with like accuracy and sensitivity. It's still funny, but also like uncomfortable. And I mean, I know, to be honest, from personal experience and from many, many, many friends, it's it's surprising how common it is to have intimacy problems and how your relationship in the bedroom affects like the broader relationship.
And how it reflects the fact that you may not be connected in ways that are meaningful, or that you could be connected in a deeper ways, and how to go about doing that, especially when you're in a long-term relationship, right? I know Bobby and I discussed this many times as well, because, I've had long-term relationships. I'm very happy in my current long-term relationship. But it is something that you consistently show up for and you work at when you're in an actual relationship in life, so to see that explored and addressed in a way that is solution seeking, right? Because also in modern relationships, what do? You swipe next, onto the next. The hardest thing is to hold on to and nurture that seedling of a relationship. So
the only thing
just awesome.
I do feel a bit awkward because I am actively trying to steal Anne's husband, Chris, for myself. I can make you happy, Chris. And Anne's wonderful.
Okay, we're open-minded. No, I'm kidding.
But just give me a chance. All right, I'm done. I had to take my shot.
Funny? I just love you. It's so funny that my character Zoe, so the direction and her ideas are so opposite from my actual like real life, very stable, non-explorative in those other people terms ways of doing things, that is also a fun thing to explore as an actor. You know, you're just like, how can you do something that's completely opposite from your actual approach on life? And I love the, you know, being open to those aspects. So Bobby always brings the comedy, but listen, I'll talk to Chris. We'll see what we can do.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me. Really enjoyed the show. Polly is the New Monogamy. Premieres on Hollywood Suites July 17th. Is that right? 17th? Yes.
That's
so
right.
You can,
yeah,
so if you're
it's
in
available
Canada,
for
you can
streaming
check it
access.
out on Hollywood Suites. If you're in the States, it's on Prime. So thanks again, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Anything you'd like to plug before we go? Any upcoming projects?
Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay, well, I'm hosting and writing another television show called Open Source. It's all about technology. It's the Canadian network called News Forum. I'd previously done 40 episodes about cryptocurrency for a show called Daily Drop. So we should be announcing that pretty soon. We have 7 episodes in the can, and they're going to start airing any day now. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Ann?
That's so amazing. That's awesome, Bobby. I'm super pumped at this point. In about 2 weeks, on the 27th, my latest Hallmark film comes out. It's called Operation Nutcracker. My amazing husband and I worked on that together, so I'm super proud of that. And it's already streaming in the States on Hallmark Movies now, but 27th on W Network, guys. And then obviously Polly's coming out and is also available to stream for our American friends on Tubi. I meant to add, Ricky. So you can actually, if you're in the States, you get to just kind of enjoy it all. And I have a Lifetime film called Little Girl in the Window that I'm super proud of. That's going to come out later this year. Very dramatic. I'm spanning the gamut here, Ricky. It's just it's wide.
So many different genres and variety. Well, awesome. Thank you guys very much again. Excited to see the reaction to Polly and your other projects. Thank you very much.
Thanks you so much, Ricky. You're the best.